Garfield is the latest movie from Illumination Studios, but is it worth rushing out to the theaters, or should we kick back, get lazy, and eat our lasagna? Welcome to Cinema, where we focus on the film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen Garfield. Was it good, bad, or somewhere right in the middle? Or if you're waiting for this review to help you decide if you should see it or not. Make sure to like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe if you're not already, to join in this film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. But going right into the synopsis. After being taken into human home as a kitten, Garfield must grow up in this spoiled life when he suddenly comes across his real father, gets forced into this life of crime and an adventure along with his father that could just rekindle their relationship. And going right into the positive, overall, for the context for my enjoyment and experience of this film, I am a Garfield reader from the past and just having enjoyed the general essence of his character being translated on screen. Obviously, they're being put from comic strips to a full-length story, and so it doesn't translate specifically well, but that's not a knock on the movie as a whole. And what I get from this is fun, it's charming, and has the essence of the character put on screen when you're getting Garfield in general. Chris Pratt really isn't too bad of a voice to be putting on there. He has a general essence to a lazy tone in some sense, and while there's not some super creative nature to that, it's nothing I would knock at all, as you generally get used to how it's getting pulled off, even if it isn't meant to be extra extravagant for the acting that you get and everything that flows about. It can go into nice twists and turns for a great adventure, and it offers what I expect from an Illumination picture in general. But going into some of the mixed elements, there's some elements of this story that aren't super creative. It is just very generic and safe with its messages and themes, playing about different aspects to a very simple extent, and never gets super extravagant in what it's trying to do with the comic book and place it onto the screen. And obviously, there's certain aspects where it seems to be setting up possible future films that are clearly devised by the fact that certain characters aren't present as frequently that you see all the time in the comics, whether it's cats or the humans. Just how that all plays out, it's not a John and Garfield movie, it is Garfield and his father movie, which isn't necessarily the negative aspect of the film that would take away anyone's enjoyment, but for the general aspect of this review, it could waver your direction either way, whether you're gonna really enjoy it if you want a purebred Garfield movie that is based somewhat around the comic strips of what you're expecting. And so generally along those lines, it takes different directions that are not very creative with what it's doing with its story when it goes about doing a trope of a direction. Even if it is a fine trope on its own, it is the very safe and general route that you're expecting the story to go. And while it's not overall predictable from beginning to end, you're guessing this point and it ends up being that way, it still just doesn't have the biggest surprises that we could really make this film more enhanced by the nature of something that's very close to being original, or taking sweet little directions, even if it follows the same trope lines that makes this for a younger audience film. Which takes me into the negatives. This film just does not quite work, with so many different contrivances along the way, different points of miscommunications between characters, and obvious leads within the writing that delays the film to be longer and longer stretched because of how they communicate certain ideals and predictions you can have based on what has happened, why Garfield was abandoned, and things that have led up for characters meeting together, things that where the villain doesn't have the purest of motivations, why she goes to the extreme she does. It just seems all weird and strange by the nature of some essence to it. And while it still has the charm here and there, well, I still enjoy enjoy the film to a certain extent that I wouldn't be against watching it again for an enjoyment aspect of getting Garfield as a character. There's just something that just does not click well with Garfield being translated from comic strip to film, where it doesn't feel like it's trying to be segmented in a proper way or even as a complete package, because there's also all of these different things where with its tropes, while there's nothing horrible about playing safe with some of its tropes, with some of those tropes, there's aspects to the story where Garfield breaks the fourth wall. There's other aspects where they're going on a heist. Other things that go about different directions and different quirks that make the story more unique. But as a whole, there's certain elements to that are placed randomly. It doesn't feel like it's trying to have a strict direction or know how to place its events in a proper order, that knows how to utilize those good writing elements that would make it flow naturally and really grab onto the natural elements of the story, win you over with lovable characters, because it removes you away from the essence of the Garfield comic book and try and force these themes into the story by blending it in an intermixed way that just does not always work at the end of the day by the way they progress this film as a whole. And so that's just my personal thoughts on Garfield the movie, which I have to rate as simply 4.5 out of 10, where I did enjoy the general essence, but it really took a lot of shortcuts along the way to get the job done. Make sure to comment down below your thoughts on the movie, if it's good, bad, or somewhere right in the middle, or if you just waited for this review to help you see it or not. And make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're ready to join in this film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. So that's just all. Thank you for watching. Do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.